Hello viewers, last class we discussed about the scientific concepts of environment. Today's class we will be discussing about environmental ethics in India and environmental education. Now to start with, let us know about the basic objectives of this program. The objectives are to know the Indian environmental ethics, to understand the ancient Indian philosophy relating to environment protection, to understand the India's ancient traditions in protecting the environment, the need and scope for environmental education in India and its importance, the need for re-engineering the concept of environmental ethics and generate awareness among the people about environmental protection. As per nature.com, environmental ethics is a branch of applied philosophy that studies the conceptual foundations of environmental values as well as more concrete issues surrounding societal attitudes, actions and policies to protect and sustain biodiversity and ecological systems. Most of the religions of the world realized the proximity of mankind with nature. The cultural and religious heritage shows a deep concern for the protection and preservation of human environment. India in particular had an ancient tradition of paying constant attention in protection of the environment. The growth of environmental ethics was heavily influenced by cultural factors. Culture and religion is one of the comprehensive solutions to the environmental crisis. Indian environmental ethics, let us know about the historical view of it. Ethics is a branch of philosophy that studies and evaluates human conduct in the light of moral principles. Environmental ethics in India is prevailing since the Vedic period. Living in harmony with nature and not exploit it is the message one can draw from our old cultural values. Ethics is a set of moral principles or rules of conduct. Ethics means the science that deals with morals and moral correctness. The principles of ethics which guide an individual how to treat the environment is known as environmental ethics. It mainly consists of rules of moral correctness or moral behavior towards the components of environment, namely water, land, air, flora and fauna. Since Vedic times, the main motto of social life was to live in harmony with nature. Sages, saints and great teachers of India lived in forests, meditated and expressed themselves in the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Smritis and the Dharmas. This belief of the olden times preached reverential attitude towards plants, trees, animals and the Panchabhutas, which are earth, bhumi, sky, akash, air, vayu, water, jal and agni, fire. Protecting this is regarded as a sacred duty of every human being. The ancient Indian philosophy relating to environmental protection. India is a secular country. The people worshipped the objects of nature. The trees, water, land and animals gained important positions in the ancient times. The religious heritage of India shows a deep concern for the protection and preservation and conservation of the environment. Man, the most intelligent species in the world, has been equipped to know and explore, to find out what is best for the well-being of mankind. The United Nations Conference on Human Environment 1972 Stockholm Declaration stated that man has a right to utilize environment for his growth and necessities. In Hindu philosophy, it is believed that human body is composed of 5 elements, Panchatattva, which are air, water, sky, earth and fire of the nature. According to this philosophy, human body is a part of the nature. Nature possesses an inherent quality to cure pollution by itself. After the birth of mankind, environmental pollution started growing. Performance of yajna was a method to purify the surrounding air. In Hindu theology, forests, trees and wildlife protection held a place of special reverence. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas and other ancient scriptures of Hindu religion give a detailed description of trees, plants and wildlife and their importance and utility to society. Our ancestors knew that trees were a great necessity for mankind and forests were necessary for human existence and civilization to flourish. It is these forests that provided shelter for rishis and accommodated the ancient gurukulas, schools of knowledge. They also provided food and support to our ancestors. Similarly, it is said in Skanda Puran that peepal tree is supreme among all other trees and also has medicinal value. Further, in Yajnavalkya Smriti, cutting trees and forests was a punishable offence. We also find reference of beautiful forests, Nandanavana and Khandavavana in epic literature, wherein destruction of forests was considered to be a great sin. Manu insisted in Manu Dharma Shastra to maintain the quality of water and to avoid water pollution. He advised not to contaminate water. Similarly, we find instructions in Yajnavalkya Smriti and Charaka Samhita on how to use water for maintaining its purity. Many references are found in Yajurveda, Brihad Samhita, Yajnavalkya Smriti and Vishnu Samhita, which highlighted the importance to protect birds and animals. Killing of birds and animals was strictly prohibited according to these scriptures. In order to protect the trees from the woodcutter's hand, the Skanda Purana mentions that cutting of trees may lead one to the hell. Probably in the ancient times, the sages and rishis found it convenient to make worship of all forms of nature necessary to show reverence and invoke goodness or positivity. Pujas were performed for rainfall, for peace and for attaining moksha. On the other hand, this stops the practice of harming these forms of nature such as trees and polluting rivers, etc., as people will be scared of going to hell and getting horrendous punishments. Environmental perspectives in the Bhagavad Gita and other religious texts. According to Bhagavad Gita, since man is part of nature, any damage to nature damages him. What is Prakriti or nature is spiritual dimension is environment in our normal perception. Therefore, any damage to environment damages us. Since we are part of the environment, that works continuously using us as its tool. It is needless to say that environment has to be preserved for our own survival. All the other religions such as Islam and Christianity found God as omnipotent and omnipresent and hence respect nature. Lord Mahavira proclaimed a profound ecological truth. One who neglects or disregards the existence of earth, air, fire, water and vegetation disregards his own existence, which is entwined with them. Mahavira explained that man has no existence in exclusion of nature. To Buddhism, Tree is a potential source of food and shelter for men and animals. He preached compassion towards every living creature. Buddhism strongly preached ahimsa. Sikh religion also respects nature as it recognizes the presence of God everywhere and in every form. India's ancient traditions in protecting the environment. Ancient India was known for its reverence for environment from all aspects. The ancient sages and knowledgeable people of that era understood the importance of environment and wanted to preserve it for the well-being of all living creatures. Most of the religious texts, scriptures and Puranas mention that protection of environment was dharma of human beings. Sacred groves were kept untouched and undisturbed since times immemorial. It was considered a sin to harm the sacred groves, and trees were worshipped in the past and rivers were considered goddesses. There was a belief that nature is nothing but an embodiment of God, the Almighty. Rishis warned against deforestation and cutting of trees. They thought this would result in poor rainfall and imbalance of the ecosystem. Yajnas were performed in Vedic societies to appease the gods and goddesses and purify the surrounding air. However, it is stated that during the period of Aryan civilization, nature was exploited, trees were cut and forests were cleared for various human needs such as manufacturing chariots, furniture, etc. Kautilya's Arthashastra and environment protection. During the Mauryan period, utmost attention was given to environment protection. It was during this period that detailed and prescriptive law provisions as contained in Kautilya's Arthashastra were followed and enforced. The ancient Indian law on environment protection is based on Kautilya's Arthashastra. He has dealt exhaustively with the question of environment protection in his Arthashastra. He laid down various rules for the protection and conservation of environment. Some of them are: the king shall protect forests and also resort to afforestation measures so that loss of forests for various purposes may be recuperated. Fines were levied on different kinds of forests and groves depending upon its utility and services. It was a must to follow the penalties and punishments prescribed. The superintendent of forest produce used to fix adequate fines and compensation to be levied on those who cause any damage to productive forests. The king had the right to utilize timber forests and elephant forests. He could establish factories for goods made from them. It was a sin to kill animals without a reason, and hunting was prohibited in certain forests and sacred groves so that all living beings could live in amicably. Degeneration of ethical values and environmental problems. During the last few decades, unprecedented harm was done to the environment and lot of imbalance is taking place in nature due to this harm done. Many species of flora and fauna, some of them rare and precious, have disappeared or become extinct from this planet, and many are facing the danger of extinction. The human values and respect towards environment has decreased among the people to a great extent. It has been replaced by the urge to develop and also taking environment for granted or degrading environment, not thinking about the repercussions it may have in future. With the ever expanding horizons of science and technology and with an ever increasing world population, it became necessary to regulate human behavior which is against nature or environment. It is generally believed that in modern times, environmental protection is mostly confined to pollution control by hazardous products, gases and effluents which are the byproducts of industrialization. but we find that environmental pollution is mostly caused by every individual by not being careful towards utilizing the resources of nature. For example, it has been found that the root cause of environmental pollution is not only industrialization, but unprecedented rush of automobiles plying on the roads, leading to traffic congestion as well as resulting in causing many problems of pollution to all of us. Indian culture propagates tolerance, non-violence, equity and compassion for animate objects. Social and moral ethics relating to environment protection and conservation have been accepted by Indian courts and guidelines. Rules and regulations for environment protection were based on it. Some of the landmark judgments upholding the ancient Indian tradition concerning environment are: in MC Mehta versus Union of India, the Supreme Court of India held, in order to arouse amongst the people the consciousness of cleanliness of environment, the Government of India and the governments of the states and the union territories may consider the desirability of organizing Keep the City Clean Week, Keep the Town Clean Week and Keep the Villages Clean Week at least once in a year. During that week, the entire city, town and village should be kept as far as possible clean, tidy and free from pollution of land, water and air. Now let us deal with the concept and the evolution of environmental education. The Stockholm Conference of June 1972 on human environment stressed on the efforts required at the national and international levels on the environmental education program. Before this conference, there was no awareness on this aspect of environmental law in India, and hence the need to disseminate the knowledge relating to environment was felt at international level. Accordingly, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization (UNESCO) and United Nations Development Programme (UNDP) launched an international program in environmental education in the year 1975. In India, a step in the direction of increasing awareness, particularly among rural areas, was taken in the seminar in 1984, which was partly funded by International Development Centre, Ottawa, Canada. Some of the important proclamations and recommendations in this seminar were: it is a fundamental human right to live in a healthy environment for every human being. It is the fundamental duty of every individual to maintain purity of environment. There should be a uniform central law on environment protection. Till such a time the centre passes such a law, a manual should be prepared of all the central and state laws relating to environment. The mindless exploitation of natural resources was condemned, and it was felt that the human being should be trained to think about environment protection and conservation as an individual plays the most vital role in environment protection. In this aspect, environmental education goes a long way. The timely directions of the Supreme Court of India went to the extent of spreading environmental awareness and literacy as well as launching of environmental education not only at school level but also at the college level. The directions of the court to media to focus their programs on various aspects of the environment have been immediately complied with. The court also required every state government and educational board to take steps for environmental education. It is also to be noted that in tune with these directions, various authorities have taken up meaningful schemes of environmental education, and now environmental education has been introduced as a compulsory subject at all levels, starting from the primary level to the undergraduate level. Environmental ethics has flourished phenomenally in the last 2 decades. The reason is that many laws and policies have been framed on environment, and also most environmental crusaders insisted on protection of environment by taking help of the court. Environmental education, let us discuss about the objectives, aims and principles of this environmental education. Environmental education is concerned with those aspects of human behavior which are more directly related to man's interaction with biophysical environment and his ability to understand this interaction. There is an immediate need to make people aware about environmental degradation. Education and public participation may change and improve the quality of environment. According to UNESCO, environmental education is a way of implementing the goals of environmental protection. It is not a separate branch of science, but lifelong interdisciplinary field of study. It means education towards protection and enhancement of the environment and education as an instrument of development for improving the quality of life of human communities. The basic objectives of environmental education are awareness, to help individuals to acquire knowledge of pollution and environmental degradation; knowledge, to help individuals to acquire knowledge of the environment from the scientific point of view; attitudes, to help individuals to acquire a set of values and inculcate appropriate behavior for environmental protection; skills and capacity building, to help social groups and individuals to develop skills prepared for making environmental friendly decisions, such as joint forest management, which has been taken up by the government in order to provide rehabilitation to the villagers, scheduled tribes; participation, to provide individuals with an opportunity to be actively involved at all levels in environmental decision making, training and imparting of traditional knowledge. The constitutional provisions relating to environmental protection are Article 51A, Clause G of the Constitution of India. Forests, lakes, rivers, animals and birds should all be treated on par with man because they are complementary to each other. Damage or destruction of one of them would invite the downfall of the other. Ahimsa Parmo Dharma. The tenet of non-violence should be followed by one and all, and whether they deal with human beings or the flora and fauna. Article 48 of the Constitution of India. This article recognizes the importance of protecting the environment and says that we must have compassion for living creatures and reverence for nature, and making reintegration with the nature is the basis of our code of ethics and value system. Abiding by the above mentioned principles, humanity will become aware of the importance of biosphere, of replenishing nature and of implementing the ancient Indian environmental ethics, and adhering to this is the need of the hour. The then UN Secretary General Boutros Ghali concluded the Earth Summit, United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, Rio de Janeiro, June 1992, with the statement, "The spirit of Rio must create a new mode of civic conduct. It is not enough for man to love his neighbor, he must also learn to love his world." If environmental ethics is to be connected with our perceived environmental concerns and thereby align constructive responses to the crisis that gave birth to environmental ethics, then we must work towards a more holistic environmental ethics. Law alone is not capable to deal with environmental crisis unless society is also adequately and appropriately enlightened on the issue. Man has a pious duty to protect gifts of nature. Environmental ethics prevailed in ancient society, and today the Constitution of India recognizes it and abides by it. It is the sacred duty of every citizen to protect nature. Dear students, last session we discussed about the basic scientific concepts relating to environmental law. This session we have discussed about the environmental ethics, the ancient traditions of our ancestors which were towards protection of environment. Next chapters we will be dealing with various laws and regulations relating to environment protection. Environmental law is an interdisciplinary subject. Hence, we need to deal with environmental law from various perspectives. We have constitutional provisions which are relating to environment. We have international provisions or international conventions and treaties relating to environment. We have the previous laws which were made for environmental protection in absence of specific regulations on environment, and we will also deal with environmental laws and regulations relating to environment protection which were made under the municipal law of our country. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this session.